Okay, I'm down in the basement getting ready to do the duct leakage to outside depressurization test with the Minneapolis Duct Blaster. And the first thing that I need to do is to take a baseline. I have all of the ducts taped off upstairs, and I'll show you what I use to tape those off in a minute. But right now, I'm going to take my baseline on this, and I'm going to do that not by covering the face of the fan, but just simply tipping it down on its face like this. So I'm sitting on a drop cloth right now, so I get a nice good seal against the floor. That's a whole lot faster and easier than having to put the cover on the fan. So I'm going to grab my gauge here, and I'm going to take a baseline. So we're going to set our mode to pressure and flow, our device to Duct Blaster Model B. Our configuration, I'm going to start off with ring 3. You can see that on there. And we're going to take our baseline. So we hit baseline, start. And we're going to wait, 10 or 15 seconds until that number over on the left, our pressure, stabilizes. So once that's pretty stable, and it should be right about 0, because we're just in the basement and the wind's not blowing, we're going to hit enter to lock that in. Now you'll see over here there's a little ADJ for adjusted pressure. That means we've got our baseline locked in. And if we change modes on this, when we do like the total leakage test instead of leakage to outside, then we're going to have to redo the baseline, because if we change modes, we lose our baseline. Okay, I'm ready to start the leakage to outside depressurization test for the duct system, and I want to show you how to start cruise control on the DG700. Turn on the light so it's a little easier to see. First thing we need to do is change our mode to pressure and flow, because the cruise control won't work well at pressure and flow at 25 or 50 or anything. Our device is still blower door 3. Configuration, I know this house we have to have ring A1 on there. And our time average, we want to make sure that's at 1, because we need the cruise control to continually sample in order to keep things right at 25. Now the first thing I'm going to do, you can see I've got a lot of fluctuation here, so I'm going to take a baseline reading. Baseline, and then start. We're going to let it run for at least 10 seconds. Or until that number starts to stabilize a little bit. And since this is just the duct leakage test and not the blower door test, we're not going to bother doing the Chapter 8 standards for a duct leakage, or for the duct leakage test like we would for a blower door. So what I need to do now, of course, is to uncover my fan. And we're going to start cruise control. And the way we start cruise control, we hit begin cruise, and it's going to start up here and say 50, and it starts flashing. Now what it's asking us for is what our cruise target is. And our cruise target, we hit cruise target once, and it's going to be 25. We can scroll through there, and you can see we can go to 0, -0, or 50 also. But we're going to say 25. Now we make sure that our speed controller is clicked to the on position, but not turned up. And if we just hit the start fan button, the fan starts running a little bit, and will take us right down to -25 pascals. And if for some reason it can't reach that pressure, then the gauge will beep at us and let us know. Now this is all going to change a little bit when we start doing blower door tests with the iPad, but for right now we don't have any communication between this and the iPad. So here is how I tape off typical registers. I actually don't use tape. I use a big piece of, I think this is 3mm plastic that I lay down over the hole and then slip the register in place. Now we used to use magnets, but what we found was this little louver adjustment would raise the magnet up, and we wouldn't get a real good seal around the edges to carpet anyway. And by using this piece of plastic, we're able to cover up some of these little holes around the edges too, where the boot might not be completely sealed to the subfloor. Okay, we're in the basement, and the blower door is upstairs running the house down to -25. And so we're going to take the duct system down to 0, -0, so that it matches the house, so that the duct system then will be to -25 compared to the outside, roughly. Now, A lot of people have a tough time understanding how the duct blaster works, and the best way that I can explain it is that the duct blaster is like a mini blower door just for the duct system. And if there's a leak in the duct system, then we need to run a fan in order for it to maintain negative pressure, just like we're running a fan on the house with the blower door for it to maintain negative pressure. Now, ideally, if we have all the ducts taped off, the only hole open to the entire duct system is the face of our duct blaster fan. And before we look at the gauge over there, with our fan upstairs running on cruise control again, we're gonna think about a couple numbers before we look at the gauge. Now, there are three possibilities for those numbers. The number on our gauge right now, without running the fan, could be positive, negative, or 0. So you might think to yourself, well, why would it be negative? If our duct blaster gauge is reading that right now the duct system is negative, that means it's more negative than the house, which seems kind of odd. Why would the duct system be more negative than the house? Well, there could be a couple reasons. Number one, it could be that we left a duct untaped upstairs very close to the blower door. If there was one in the foyer behind the door and the duct system is getting depressurized by the blower door a little bit more than the house because of its proximity to the fan. Another possibility would be a duct booster fan. If there's a small duct booster fan somewhere, then maybe the induced pressure on the house has tripped that pressure switch and it's starting to draw the house a little bit negative. Now, the other possibilities are that it could be a slightly positive number or 0. Now, if it's 0, there are two scenarios there. If it's 0, then the duct system is either perfect, which is unlikely, or we missed taping several registers or one large register. Now, the manufacturers of the duct blaster system have told us that if we missed just one register, it shouldn't make a difference in our leakage to outside results. And, we can test that. I encourage anybody who's learning the duct blaster system, test this, tape and untape registers and see what it does. And I'll tell you that if we missed just one register, it's probably not going to affect these results at all, if any. If it does affect it a little bit, then what it's going to do is it's going to give us a false positive. It's going to say that our duct system is actually a little bit better than it is. So if we taped off that register that might be untaped upstairs, then we'll find that we have more duct leakage. And the reason for that is that the blower door upstairs would be doing more of the work and not registering on this gauge down here. So we've covered if it's slightly negative or if it's 0, but now what we really want is for it to be just slightly positive. If the gauge right now reads 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, maybe even up to 1 Pascal, that tells us that there's a little bit of leakage, but it's an amount that we can measure. And we can measure it by turning on the fan and bringing the duct system down to 0. So let me grab the gauge and see what it says. You can see I've got it stuck on there with my magnet, but I'll take it over here to the camera so you can see things a little bit easier. Turn on the light, and you can see we have a slightly positive. It's bouncing around 0.2, 0.3, 0.5, 0.2. So that tells us there's a little bit of leakage and it's an amount that we can measure. So let's turn on the fan. And what we're going to try to do is to get this down to bounce between 0 and negative 0. Now, the reason we want it to bounce between 0 and negative 0 is that if we just take it down to 0, then there's a rounding error in there that is pretty big. And that is the rounding error of 0.01, 0.02, 0.03, 0.04 until we get to 0.05, and then it'll register on here as 0.1. So we're still at like 0.1 right now, and turn the fan up a little bit. I've got ring 3 in here, so we should have to turn the fan up quite a ways. Wow. We're still at 0 and 0.1, 0.2 with 164. So I'm going to have to change from ring 3 down to ring 2. We now have ring 2 installed instead of ring 3. I'm going to change my configuration, which I can do and I don't lose my baseline. And now we're getting down into the negative range where we need to be. We're at about 182, 183. See if I can get it to bounce 0, -0. It is a little bit breezy outside, so the blower door upstairs is probably fluctuating a little bit. $172, 173. There's a -0, and that's what we want. We want it to bounce back and forth between those two. Now we can take a time average here, which would be wise, and we're probably supposed to take the same time average as we did when we took our baseline. So if our baseline, we let it run for 10 seconds, then we can put this on time average 10 seconds and get our result. And our result is 174. So that's what we're going to record for our duct leakage to outside depressurization. I hope that helps. If you'd like to subscribe to this channel, you'll get notified immediately of new videos that I upload. If you have any questions about the duct blaster, the blower door, or anything else about home energy ratings and testing and audits and all of that stuff, I am a certified rater, I'm a certified trainer, I'm a quality assurance designee, and there's probably not a question that you can't ask that I can't find the answer for. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. Okay.